Good morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2015. Yesterday, two deadlines. The Iranian nuclear talks came and went without any agreement, and the Greek debt crisis also came and went. We'll talk about that later, but it could be argued that there is still no clarity on that. The plane crash in Indonesia yesterday has now included a death toll of about 155 as more and more people on the ground are being found dead. The big news in reinsurance and insurance today is a gigantic acquisition. ACE Insurance, which is based out in Bermuda, has agreed to acquire the U.S. insurer Chubb. This is the biggest deal yet. It's a $28.3 billion deal. The combined entity is going to become the leading global property and casualty insurance company based on underwriting income. The deal is going to end up with 70% of the newly formed company being owned by current ACE shareholders, with Chubb's people owning the other 30%. Evan Greenberg, the CEO of ACE and chairman, is going to lead the new entity. John Finnegan, who's the current CEO of Chubb, is going to serve as executive vice chairman for external affairs in North America. This is going to be, there's going to be many more stories on this as to how it shakes out in the insurance and reinsurance arena. The news broke today at about 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time. As of right now, though, this is the creation of a colossus, so it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. The Greek Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, has apparently written a letter which was seen by Reuters, the news service, to the IMF and to the Eurozone finance ministers, saying that Greece could accept their last bailout offer if some, quote, minor conditions were changed. The Germans are expressing skepticism, although there is a meeting today at 3:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time where the Eurozone ministers are going to discuss it. Meanwhile, in Greece itself, the situation worsens. Greek banks are reporting that they are running out of 50 euro and 20 euro banknotes. Long lines are appearing at credit machines. Some 1,000 bank branches were reopened today, apparently only to pensioners who are allowed to withdraw limited sums. Polling data is showing that the party that is the party that's represented by Prime Minister Tsipras, which was elected on anti-austerity promises, that the referendum scheduled for Sunday, polling is showing that support for them is eroding quickly as the situation financially begins to worsen in Greece. So there's an awful lot of pressure on Prime Minister Tsipras. I've begun to change my mind on this. I had previously agreed with the Germans and the EU that Greece needed to be held to a draconian austerity plan. However, there's no moral teaching that needs to go on here. If you're interested in being repaid, you have to give Greece enough room to be able to instigate production and to revive the economy, which they cannot do if they're burdened with this kind of crushing debt. So a decision has to be made as to whether or not you're interested in teaching them a lesson or actually being repaid at some point in the future. And that's the struggle that the European community is grappling with right now. Sometime later this morning, the U.S. and Cuba are going to announce the restoration of diplomatic relations. They have, of course, been severed since 1961, following 18 months of secret negotiations, you may remember, brokered by Pope Francis and Canada. Washington and Havana announced last December that they plan to reopen the embassies in each other's capitals. That's apparently going to happen. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is expected at a flag-raising ceremony in Havana at the American Embassy later this month. Firefighters in Milwaukee were called out to the Miller-Coors brewery yesterday at about 6:30 p.m. following an explosion in a 12-story grain blower in the brew house. There were no reports of any injuries, but it was a very loud explosion. The firefighters were at the scene in 1 minute. They found smoke billowing from the top of the building. They had to climb up a 12-story building through a labyrinth of corridors and various other things, stairwells, and they were able to put the fire out. There's an investigation undergoing right now. The FBI, meanwhile, is investigating a mysterious string of attacks on fiber optic cables in the San Francisco Bay Area, including one that severely disrupted internet services at numerous businesses and residences. At least 11 physical attacks on these cables have occurred since July of last year. The latest attack happened at 4:20 a.m. Pacific time yesterday, and it was particularly alarming because it was a concerted strike at 3 internet cables that affected the Sacramento area. Much of the outage in the Sacramento area lasted for the whole day. The area has been a hotbed for such attacks over recent years, and the FBI obviously believes that there is something seriously conspiratorially amiss. The cables are very, very difficult to cut and require specialized tools, and the locations of the cuts are in such prominent places that the FBI theorizes that the perpetrators are actually wearing utility company uniforms. The software meltdown yesterday, which experts feared would take place when the leap second was added to atomic clocks, was not as widespread as feared, but it did affect people. Twitter and Android were both affected. Also, Amazon, Netflix, and Pinterest crashed at midnight UK time. Many were offline for about 40 minutes. Apple's newly launched music streaming services Beats One crashed for about 40 minutes. The National Atomic Clock at Washington and in London added a second to international time to account for the slowing down of the Earth's rotation. This is the 26th time since 1972 that a second has been added to clocks. That means that the rotation of the Earth has slowed by 26 seconds since the early 1970s. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news or any more clarity on this Chubb deal and how it'll affect things, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.